So when we first started working together, how did working with me help you see your entire financial life as an integrated whole rather than a bunch of different disconnected pieces?
Well, when we first started working with you, I feel like my, at least, view of how we use our money was very much focused on we don't have enough and we have to save, save, save. And it was really stressful with the thought of like we're not going to be like we'll never be able to retire, we'll never be able to afford sending our kids to college, we'll never be able to afford all these big expenses that will be in our future. And then after working with you, it kind of gave like seeing where everything was, how our money was spread out amongst various different areas, and seeing how much we had was a bit of an eye opener. And also, I think seeing our spending habits and our saving habits, behavior, like you like, helped me recognize some behaviors that I didn't particularly want to keep
Hmm.
in terms of like how I viewed money and how I viewed like our financial status.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I mean, I think it was, yeah. So, right, because it's about the disconnected pieces, and I think it was one of those things where we really did everything in discrete elements. Everything was very discrete,
Everything was very spread out in different places too.
and so every account had a purpose and everything had a value, and it was we got so lost in the weeds that we weren't looking at the forest
Hmm.
and kind of seeing what did we have overall and what could we do with it. And I think the hard part was that because we'd gotten stuck in that spot, if something wasn't in the right bucket, then it just didn't exist, and we weren't really treating our financial environment as something that was an integrated whole, right? That if I move money from this place to that, I'm not robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's all the same money.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
And so I can use it wisely in different ways that I don't have to treat everything as a very specific X, Y, and Z.
That's really cool. No, that's really cool. And I love, Laura, that you said behavioral. What behavior were you doing after we got started working together? Like, yeah, I ain't doing that anymore.
Like what changed?
Yeah, like what behavior did you have that you were like, yeah, I don't love this about me. I'm changing it.
I
Saving
did,
too much.
yeah,
Oh,
well, that sounds really bad. I was saving way too much. No, it was kind of like that mentality of like, I don't have enough all the time. We're
we
talking
weren't
about
born in the Great Depression.
we weren't born in the Great Depression, but we were kind of had that mentality because I think
Yeah.
because of how we were raised and because of, for a long time, we're luckily in a position now in our financial lives where we are fairly well set.
Yeah.
Like, we can be totally reckless, but we're okay. I was still living with the mindset that we're not in a position where we're okay, and so if we were talking about, like, going and visiting family, "Oh, is that gonna cost too much money? I don't know if we have the resources for that, that's gonna be a lot." Although we afford to do, like, a vacation, or can we afford to buy a
Yeah.
car, or, that mentality since working with you, I think that has changed more in that, like, if we are looking at bigger purchases, that it's like, "Okay, it's okay, we
Yeah.
can we can manage
What
this."
what was it that did that? Like what conversation or what tool?
Yeah.
It was
It
that.
started from the beginning,
Yeah,
right? Because I think it
that
started with that,
that personality questionnaire that you
right?
had us do in the very
Okay.
beginning
All
when you
right.
were at Goldman's.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, what is it that's important to us? And I think taking that step back was huge because it wasn't it put us in a situation where we weren't expecting you weren't expecting us to trust you just blindly, right? And I think we had the benefit of coming to you and going through family and somebody that we trust, right? And going through parents. And so there's that we already had kind of a certain level of trust. But I think by going through that review and that analysis and you taking the time to understand what was important to us helped you see what in my mind, it helped you see where we were coming from and why we were approaching things
Very
the
good.
way we did. And then I think for us, it gave us a level of a place to start off of so that when we did start looking at how are we going to do things, what are we going to do? It wasn't something that we were going into and having to go in blindly. We didn't have to go in on just on straight faith. There was we know where we are, we know what we think and how we value money and how we treat money. And in that context and in that mindset, how are we going to spend money? How are we going to save money? And how are we going to do so in a way that
We can
that
still see growth and be okay.
And
yeah,
helps
that
you live
meets our needs
luxury.
without it doesn't require us to abandon who we are, but allows us to look at the world in a better or more positive light.
What do we do? What do I do ongoing to help you see that, like, those goals and dreams that you had were reaching, and then that you're okay doing it? Why do you still feel comfortable doing what you're doing?
Well, I mean, right, well, so I think the sorry.
I think part of that is that we are seeing like our portfolio grow for one, and we're still able to like we've had a few big purchases that we've had to do, like with the third car, and we've
Yeah, we had to buy another car. We went out of town. We go on vacation. We get back, and the day we get back from vacation, the air conditioner dies.
well,
Right, and it's. I remember when we bought the house and we were thinking about it, and the AC unit was old, and it was always a knock on wood. We don't talk about the AC unit because it just keeps running, and part of it was we never wanted to think about the fact that we're going to have to replace it someday.
Interesting.
But we get back and it's okay, we need to replace it. All right, well, cut a check. And it wasn't something that we stressed about.
Very cool.
And I think that it was the beginning and then it's the ongoing discussions and conversations that sort of changed our at least from my mind, it's changed my relationship with money.
It's very cool.
It's money isn't a thing that you collect for a rainy day. Money is a tool to meet the needs of today, tomorrow, and any rainy days, right?
Mm.
It's not just a thing to collect. It's not just something you throw into your closet and hope it'll be okay. It's something that you actually do things with.
Is that it's
Fair.
changed your behavior, and you're living the life that you want, and that your money is being used as a place to enjoy life. And I love that. I love that you're saying that that relationship, because it's a relationship. We don't think of it as a relationship, but it is. It's a relationship like everything else, right? So
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that the regret really is that we didn't
start sooner.
yeah, we didn't do this early, right? That I didn't sit there and corner Steve earlier and ask because
mm,
I mean, and right, so I look at like just how we kind of treat money.
I asked Steve,
did you really?
not him. I
Fair
did.
enough.
And Steve said, "Hey, I know this guy. I have this guy."
But I mean, I think the big thing has been the transition. It's because of change in relationship with money. I think there's a lot of things that we didn't do before that I wish we had done.
Like, I like that when we have our meetings that we go over, like, where we are, where we were, where we are, what our financial needs at the time. Like, you and Brock do a pretty good job of, like, when we meet together, going over, like, the status of things with us, addressing any concerns that we have, answering questions that we have about financial decisions that we wanna make. Like, I think all of that coupled with seeing results of our portfolio growing,
Interesting.
even despite like economic, I mean, not to say that it will always be that it grows at different rates and sometimes it goes down
Yeah,
on the whole it's going up.
yeah.
Like seeing all that, all of those conversations and results I think help bring a peace of mind
That's
with
cool.
like being able to have that kind of relationship that we have been able to, like, I guess, develop with our
I
finances.
love that. I love so it's the combination of the continued asking, "What do you
Yeah.
want? What are you doing? What are you excited about?"
What are your
Coupled
big
with the
what are your
money.
upcoming projects and purchases,
Yeah,
or like what's going on, or and then helping us figure out how we're going to manage anything that we're expected to handle in the near
very
future,
cool.
or like far future or
The
whatever.
recalibration, going to
Yeah.
kids going to college,
Yeah.
trips, travel. No,
That
that's really
all is
cool.
has been very, very helpful
I
because
remember
I
one
think,
time I said, "You guys need to go on a cruise," and you did.
Yeah.
yeah, I
Right.
mean,
And that's the point, right?
we take your advice like pretty seriously. It's no pressure. If you steer us wrong one of these times, then it's all on you.
Well, I mean, but I think a lot of it is driven by that, right? That changed relationship because it's not focusing on that continual focus on tomorrow and it's acknowledging that there are
Today.
things to do today
That's
and there's
okay.
no point in putting things if you keep putting things off till tomorrow, you're never going to get there and you're never going to be satisfied. It's a little bit of that. I don't want to call it Ebenezer Scrooge, but it's right. It's that I can enjoy today and it's not wrong to enjoy today. The risk is being irresponsible today and not having for tomorrow
Which is why the conversations that you have with us is
is helpful.
still
Yeah, yeah, because you guys are so organized. You're so disciplined. You've done so well. You'll do so well that
fingers
really
crossed.
Maybe.
Well, we always have that we're waiting for the shoe to drop kind of mentality
well, I
still
don't know that
in
the
our
shoes
head.
I don't know that the shoe's dropping on the 2 of you because
I
you're too
mean, but
It's
motivated.
always a thought. It's
yeah,
always in the back of our mind that we're still like when we make our decisions that will still always be at least some consideration,
yeah,
but it's not as more prominent as it used to
That's
be.
yeah.
cool. That's giving you some more leeway. That's awesome. Can you think of specific examples where my advice or planning has been specific to you, where you felt like this isn't just an off the shelf thing that Mitch tells everyone. Like this is something that I can tell he thought about for us, and it's like, yeah, this is for you specifically. Any specific examples of that?
Well, I mean, so I look at our conversations that we've had with just right with our recalibrations and sort of our goals and our focuses. But then it's also taking into account our risk tolerance and what do we want to do and how do we want to approach the money, right? So one of the and so we came to you and we said, look, where my biggest issue right now is that I just pay too much in taxes. I feel like it doesn't matter how much I have withheld. Every year I end up owing a ton of money and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And so it was, hey, why don't we look at tax loss harvesting? And that's I think a great example. I still think it sounds like some sort of weird voodoo and I don't quite get it. But I mean, it's a methodology that exists and it was a suggestion, a recommendation that was made specific to an issue or concern that I'd raised. And that's the kind of thing that you look for. It's getting that specific guidance or response in view of what I've raised.
That's awesome.
I think
Yeah.
that's the big
That's great. No, I appreciate you bringing up that tax loss harvesting. Honestly, of all the investment strategies that I recommend, like that to me is one of the coolest things out there. Yeah, and it does sound like voodoo, and people usually are like, "Huh? Like you're gonna give me gains and then losses at the same time?" Yeah,
yeah.
like I don't understand it.
Is this legal?
Well, right,
And
and
this
in my
is
head, I'm thinking,
legal?
well,
Like
so
you're giving me gains and losses? This is weird.
yeah, and I don't get how it works, and I don't understand it, but I just sort of it's a bit of a trust the process, and I mean, it's one of those things where my view is that you don't come into my office and tell me how to do my job. We're trusting, and now granted, right, it's a big trust. We're trusting you with
Big
all
trust.
of our assets,
It's a big
but we're not going to come into your office and tell you how to do your job.
yeah.
We're just going to we tell you what we need, what we're looking for, and then we trust you to figure out how to get us to where we're trying to get.
Very cool. No, I think about what I ask people to do. I'm like, this is like the biggest ask of the life. Hey, give me all your money you've accumulated over your entire lifetime. Trust that I have it. And if I lose it, you just have to go back to work, especially like if you're older and retired. That's a
Yeah,
big ask.
it is.
That is like all trust.
Yeah.
So it's huge. I get that. And I take that very seriously. I think it's an honored spot. And because I'm in that spot with many clients, like it's a pretty special, a very, very special place for me to be. I think about it all the time and I don't ever take that for granted. Sometimes it gets me up at night when the markets are tanking. I'm like, this is not fun. I haven't had that for a while because markets have been so good, but let's see. So in terms of like, I mean, both are like super savvy with the money. You've done a great job. When we first started working together, were there specific strategies that I started to implement with you that you hadn't done or you wouldn't have done on your own? Obviously, one's tax loss harvesting, but Lori, what would you say about that?
Well, so one of the things that I mean, I didn't do until we started working with you was like starting to diversify my company stock, because I'd really never understood how to do that. And figuring out how to take what I've had for years and years and years and what's the best way to, offload the older stocks that I've had that have a high appreciation value and without like minimal or with minimal tax gains like that. All that stuff didn't start happening. I would, if I wasn't, if honestly, if we weren't working with you at this point, I think I'd probably still have majority of my financial portfolio being invested in the company stock that I
Right,
have.
right. So let's drill into that because that's a hard thing for a lot of people
Uh huh.
because their pride and their worth sometimes is tied to their company, and that stock represents that for them, and they're like, "Well, of course I'm gonna keep a lot of it. This is gonna be a great company because I'm here," right? So was
Yeah.
that hard for you? And if it was, like, did we do anything specific that helped you kinda work through that
I
pause?
mean, I don't know if I don't know if it was hard necessarily. Yeah, it's because the stock that I have has been appreciating at a fairly decent pace for probably the last several, like over probably good 10 years at this point. Diversifying and like selling some of that with the idea that it could still potentially grow and losing that appreciation in the stock value, that was a little bit hard. At the same time, I know that like working in the tech industry, that is never guaranteed. And so I think when you talked us through like reducing, I mean, you talked me through like a comfort level with risk and, taking that into consideration, you kind of helped me see that, well, if you do this, yeah, this could continue to grow, but you're taking a big risk you kind of spoke my language in terms of like risk comfort,
Mm,
and helped me realize that way that, yeah, I'm not going to get rid of all of my stock. I'm just going to have some of it still there
still gonna grow.
so I could still potentially, you know, grow. And I don't anticipate um having like never like at this point I don't anticipate having all of that be sold off.
Between saying, "Hey, there's too much risk if you have it all, but let's
Yeah.
not take it all because it's performed well, I anticipate it still will." Combination of those 2, was that kind of the piece that helped you feel a little better?
Yeah, I think like saying that we could still see similar growth by investing it in other areas, kind of like cover our bases kind of thing. I think that conversation has helped make it less difficult to do that.
That's cool. Yeah, because there's a lot of people who have very highly concentrated positions in the company in which they work,
Mhm.
and it's always a bit of a struggle to encourage them to diversify that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotion to some things. I mean, sometimes, like, there's a some people inherit stocks. We had a client who inherited Zion's Bank, and it wasn't just selling the stock, it was selling their family. It was
Yeah.
Yeah.
selling grandpa that donated it to him, right? So, there's more than just the dollar on a screen. It's like, "Hold it, that's grandpa. I'm selling grandpa. I can't do that."
And it's tough. It's hard to let go of something. I did something and I did it right, or I did however it worked,
There
and
you go. Yeah,
now
good point.
I have to try and do it again.
Good point. Good point. Because there's some pride in there, like, "Yeah, I'm doing a dang good job, and I'm gonna get rid of that." That's cool. No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
thanks for bringing that up, Lori, because that's a big piece. That's a big piece for people that is often a challenge.
Yeah. Well, even with like our Apple stock that we bought at $30 a share back in
That
the day,
was
it was super
okay.
cheap.
Yeah.
Then, you know, I think that was kind of harder for me to get rid of than my company
Oh, is
stock
it really? Interesting. Okay. Okay.
because of how well that's performed and
Yeah.
how much well, it's performed better than my company stock, but,
We haven't
Okay.
got rid of it yet, though.
That was really hard to go. Did you ever go back and go, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have?"
I think the only thing that we've kind of wished that we still had was our Nvidia stock, but
Yeah.
that's just because of how well that one's
You'd
performed
be
in
you'd be
the
glad now. You weren't glad, like, a month or 2 ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah,
I
'cause
can't imagine I'm like, "Oh, that's gotta be rough." Just don't look at it.
but
Look at
at
it.
the same time, it's like you've helped us look at the bigger
Me
picture
too.
of things too,
Yeah.
so
Right. And it's and right, and that's the whole point of that diversification. It's just
Good,
trying to remember that
it's the big
good.
picture.
it's about it's not about that one stock and being beholden to how that one company performs. It's letting the rising tide lift all boats and say, all right, I haven't earned quite as much as I could have as if I concentrated myself. But when things don't go great, I'm not losing nearly as much.
That's
And that's the real value add.
yeah,
It's
that's good.
I can gain without putting in quite as much risk.
Love that. And I tell that people, especially if they're retired, like, a little less gain allows you still to do what you wanna do.
Yeah.
A massive loss means
Is
your lifestyle changes, and you ain't
And now
doing
you're back at work. Yeah.
yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, okay." Like,
Yeah.
maybe give a little to make sure you protect a lot. So, no, that's super cool. How did you really come to trust me with your finances and investments? It's a big ask.
I mean,
How do you
I think
trust me?
there is still that level because you were a referral from family that we trusted, there was already that kind of level of
Mm,
trust
interesting.
built in, inherent, but
and
then just
being kind of straightforward about things, I think was the big thing.
Yeah.
And it's right, the referral, the being straightforward, being available, answering questions. Right. And this can sound kind of silly, but I can't recall you recommending a fly by night or something that was obviously not in our best interest. Maybe, the if the worst I can say about you is sometimes I think he's a little more conservative than I'd like, that's not a bad thing, right? And it's how you build trust. It's I'm not going to put everything you've worked for at risk just so that I can make a little more cash, make a little more commission.
Very
Yeah, I feel like the suggestions that you've given are in line with what we are comfortable with. And so, like, I don't feel like you're pushing us outside of our comfort zone when you're offering
Yeah.
advice.
very
And so I
cool.
think that helps build trust too. Like
That's great. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, obviously having the referral is a big help, but
but
I have to earn the
You
trust,
have to sustain
and I'm
it.
on my
yeah,
Yeah.
own. And
yeah, exactly.
so it's kind of good to hear like, okay, after that referral, what do I do or what do I need to be doing to build that trust myself with you,
Yeah.
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 regardless
And
of
like I
your
said,
own
I think,
version.
yeah, it's always come back to, I don't feel like you're right. I mean, obviously you've got to, this is a job, right? When at the end of the day, it's a job and you've got to earn some income, but it never feels like you're making recommendations or suggestions or giving us advice or treating our money as a revenue stream rather than, right. The relationship isn't a revenue stream. It's the work that you're doing is the revenue stream and everything. And I think it's a weird distinction, but I think there's a distinction
That's
there.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Like I think it kind of goes like we don't feel like the product. We feel like, how,
Yeah.
yeah, we don't feel like a product to you. Like
Yeah.
that makes like that what,
That's way cool.
Yeah. You're not Google.
yeah.
That's way cool. No, and that I think that's what distinguishes me someday from AI.
Totally.
Like if I'm trying to keep my job, it's because I have a relationship. Because well, of course, there are some people having probably inappropriate relationships with
I
AI.
actually read an article about that.
So maybe I
Um,
shouldn't say that.
no, but I mean, but fundamentally, I think the distinction is that it's about with AI, right? With a lot of these AI tools, a lot of these systems, ultimately, our data and therefore us is the product, not the customer. And I think the distinction is that with you, it doesn't feel like we're the product. It feels like
But we're the customer
we're the customer, and
and
the
we feel
the work that
valued
we're doing is the product.
and we feel valued, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I'll tell AI that. I'm gonna send that to AI when we're done and say, "Hey, back off. You ain't taking my job because this is what the suit said. So get out of here." What aspects of your financial life before we worked together maybe felt overwhelming or confusing, and how did I clarify that for you? You mentioned a couple things, but anything?
Anything additional?
I think the big thing was just retirement, right? It's everything. It was
Well, retirement and paying for college
well, college. I think
Yeah,
and the
was
weddings
yeah.
when
It's
they
just all of our big expenses. It was all right. How do we are we going to have enough? How are we going to pay for things? Will we ever have enough to pay for things? And just trying to see the end goal. And we right because you get so stuck and it was overwhelming to try and figure out, well, how are we going to pay for things? And
interesting.
you just sort of a lot of it was, I don't know, we'll just sort of figure it out when we get there, and hopefully it all pans out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think the that working together, it's been a lot of consolidating, understanding what we have, where it is, how we can use things wisely. Trying to do right, some of that forecasting, I think, was helpful because it gave us a sense of, okay, if this is what you do and this is kind of how if the market continues not the way it has for the last year or the last 5 years or 10 years, but if the market continues doing if the country keeps existing, right, and the last 250 years of progress continue in a similar path, then here's where you stand to be. And so it's not like you're making unreasonable or outrageous forecasts. It's a very reasonable forecast. You can get there and you can do it.
Mm,
And
mm.
and that I think makes a huge difference because it's suddenly I can get there.
That's cool. That's cool. Do you find it? I'm going to ask you this a personal question. This isn't even on my list, but I'm just curious because I think in terms of like how I spend my money is very similar to how you guys, we're frugal, but we enjoy it. So I think we have some of. So my kids always tell me, Dad, like you'll go spend $30,000 on something and not even flinch. but when we're spending this amount, like, it's a bigger deal for you. Do you guys find that struggle or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that?
I think it's because the big purchases, we're not making those big purchases
All the time.
all the
Okay.
time.
Okay.
And
So
and the big purchases have a purpose.
smaller purchases, I think, is where you're more likely to go into a downward spiral where you're just going to like keep making
Yeah.
smaller purchases over time, and then that's going to snowball into like all of a sudden you're massively in debt because you've built this habit of making small
Okay.
purchases and you can't reel that
Okay.
behavior back in.
That's my thinking too. And
It's
when in my new life, someday when I'm able to really do more in behavioral finance, it's going to be how do we create something that allows the same level of freedom or lack of like concern over it
it's
on the small
it's
stuff as we do the big stuff? Because the big stuff is easy. I do that every day. You guys
Yeah.
have talked a lot about that.
Well,
yeah, I think it's the McDonald's principle, right? Because if so Thanksgiving rolls around, Christmas, maybe like the occasional large event, right? You go and you eat and you gorge. And that's fine. And because it's not something you're being absurd about. But if you go out and you get a Big Mac every day, that's those little calories that add up. And that's where you put yourself on a path to being unhealthy. And
I
I
totally
think it's the
agree.
same thing financially, right?
like giving into impulse,
Yeah.
it's easier to give into impulse on smaller purchases than it is to give into
Yeah.
impulse on larger purchases. So when I know, like when we're making large purchases, I think we've already put a lot of thought into those.
Yeah.
Whereas like the smaller ones are kind of more on the fly. And so you
Yeah.
almost have to like consciously think more about that before you make that
Because
decision.
it's really easy to stop at McDonald's on the way home, right?
It
It's
is.
that in and
It
out's
is.
right there.
It is. No, I deal with the same thing personally. My kids always say, "Dad, like what gives? You don't give us any grief over a $10,000 trip." And we go and have a good time, but if we want to go buy, $400 worth of clothes, you're like, "What? We don't need that, right?"
Because
So,
we've planned for that $10,000
no,
trip already.
that's a great point. No, you're right. I've consciously said it, and in our plan, I put it. I can do that every year because I've got it in my plan. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if you
I
have
love
that,
that.
if you already have it in your plan to spend $400 in clothes, then you probably wouldn't think
You're right.
twice about
No,
it.
you're right. You're right. I think we think a lot the same way. It's gotta kinda be once it's in my head and I'm okay with it, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
But if it's a
Yeah.
surprise, I'm like, "What? Now we gotta spend how much
Yeah.
is that?" That's cool. Any specific examples of when we've had market volatility or downturns or uncertain times that you felt support and anything that I've done specifically to kinda help carry you through that?
So the year is 2025.
You're still giving us support, even though there's like a lot of market speculation, tariffs, all that
Right.
stuff. We're kind of in that holding pattern, waiting to see what's going to happen right now. So
Well, it's
having like
ongoing, happens every time we meet.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I feel like again it comes down to that even despite all of the uncertainty, and we've had those downturns, they still have worked in our favor
Well,
Mhm.
in the long run.
and I think the other piece, right, has been right the regular meetings that we're
Yeah,
having. It's not like
definitely the regular meetings has
if
helped.
we were meeting once a year, right, then it becomes difficult.
Or
But I
yeah,
think the regular meetings that we're having,
or the fact that we can like send you an email and ask questions when we have them, and then
yeah,
you'll respond within a reasonable time.
Very cool.
that makes a
Very
That makes a
cool.
difference.
difference too. Like
Because
knowing that we can do that with you is
Because
really
what's interesting, every new prospect, the first thing they ask is about investments. We
yeah,
talked about all the other reasons to hire an advisor, which to
yeah.
yeah.
me are as or more important than investments. But every person that like reaches out initially, I need help with my investments. That's where
Well,
they
I
start.
mean, and I think part of that is that when you think of an advisor, really, right, it's from the outside looking in, your thought is, I need somebody to help me pick stocks.
I
And
see.
that's in your head, that's
I
what you're
see.
thinking an
Okay.
advisor is. And I think it does take
Yeah, it's not really
that,
understanding what the role
I
actually
see. No,
yeah,
entails.
that's a good point. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's education maybe to the
yeah,
yeah,
public that says we're not just about the investments. We do a lot more.
yeah.
yeah.
Like you
And
helped us set up our trust, and that was something that I don't think we would have really known where to start with that.
So there were some surprises when we started working together. You're like, you do what?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
yeah,
And I think a lot of that, right, I think the whole issue with the hard part with financial advice is that, yeah, it's one of those things where it's
yeah,
so tied into, it's in, I think in a lot of people's heads, financial advisor and stockbroker are one and the same.
Hmm,
And so it's just sort of,
hmm,
oh yeah,
hmm.
I talk to my broker versus I talk to an advisor. And it's not thinking through what the title really is trying to convey,
Yeah,
that it's
love
not
that.
about
Love that.
stocks. It's about advising on your finances.
That's so cool. No, I love that. And there's also a study that says only 6.8% of financial advisors do any more than only do investments. So our own industry kind of perpetuates that. So, no, I love it. Anything specific about how I monitor or manage the money that gives you confidence in your portfolio stability?
Specific. I mean, I guess the only real specific immediate example I can think of has been one, we've made the adjustments to, well, I guess two. One is the adjustments that we've made to the methodologies and systems that we're using based on kind of our changing risk profile. And right, so this is what we have, and this is what I want to try and build towards. And so we've changed which models we use
Yeah.
in terms of determining stocks. So
Like
I think that's
tax
been,
loss harvesting.
well, not just the tax loss harvesting, but then just like, for example, do we want to go through using index funds versus individual stocks versus this, that, and the other? I think that's been a piece. The other one was the responsiveness to, hey, I'm not comfortable with this particular stock. Can we look at a different idea, or how can we get out of that? And I think that, because it's, again, it comes back to, it's not it's you're not treating our money like your money. You're still treating it like our money. And so the things that matter and that are important to us, therefore it matter and are important to you for our money, right? You're not letting my decisions influence how you handle your other customers' money,
Edge.
but you're still listening to the suggestions and requests. And I mean, I don't want to call it a demand, but the demands, right, that we end up making. It's, I don't want to be invested in this particular class of stock.
Yeah.
What can we do differently?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a big piece.
Very cool.
Yeah.
No, very cool.
Or I think about like when my company switched over to a different like K management, and you helped me figure out how, like, they had the pre-generated allocations
Yeah.
of your money, the
Target
different.
date funds.
Yeah, and then but then you, even though you're not financially, like, you don't get anything really off of telling me how to invest my, okay, you still gave advice. Like, you took a look at what funds were available, and you gave me like recommendations on how to allocate my funds in those different index funds. And I think that was, I really appreciated that, because even though that's not under the portfolio that you manage directly, um,
It still makes it a part of our financial
and
life.
and I think that also helps, that going back to the question of like what helps build trust, I think that was also something
Oh, cool.
like that was also something that helped build.
It's not just about the money, it's about
Yeah.
the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's about you guys living the life you want and enjoying the things that you want to do. Like when you went on that cruise, I was elated. I was probably as excited as you were because I'm like, wow, they're listening to me.
Yeah.
They did it. It was so fun. That was super cool. All right, 2 last questions and then we can be done. What's the biggest reason you'd recommend me as a financial advisor? So I'll ask each of you, like, tell me, like, someone could, why Mitch? What would be the first thing that pops to your head?
I feel like we can trust the advice that you give, that you take a holistic approach to like what our our needs are and what our goal, like you take a holistic approach to our finances and our mentality with it, and all of the different aspects of it, and you can relate and provide a service that fits comfortably with what we're looking for. And I mean, I've recommended to you to my sister, and I've heard from her a couple of times, like, I'm really glad that you recommended Mitch
This year,
to
alright.
me.
That's so
So I think it's because, yeah, it just comes down to trusting that you're going to try to do us with help us have a healthy relationship with our finances.
awesome, awesome. I love that. Neil, what are your thoughts? Biggest reason, top of mind.
Biggest reason top of mind, probably the idea that you'll get that your guidance and your recommendations there. I think we talked about this earlier. They're not built around trying to, I don't say meet your needs, but they're not built around trying to meet your needs. They're built around trying to meet our needs. And you're just there to sort of help guide us on the way. I think it's, and then I think this, right, the hard part is I think it's a two-part question. It's why you as an advisor generally, or why you as an advisor over somebody else. And I think why you over somebody else would be that it's the trust that we've built.
Mm,
And that I think it is this is going to sound terrible, but you may not be the right advisor for everybody. And that's fine.
yeah.
Right? Everyone has to find the right person that works for them. If someone's in a situation where they generally have a healthy relationship with finances, or they want to have a healthy relationship with money, and they're willing to take the time to listen and understand what it is that you're recommending to them, I think it makes sense to talk to you.
I love that, Neil. Thank you. So that's
Yeah.
so cool. It's like working. It's so cool because honestly, that's the space that I love to be in. And if there were people nervous about an advisor, like maybe just untrusting people who are just like, yeah, no, I'm not giving some cat my millions of dollars. What do you tell them?
So that's the other piece of it, right? It's why a financial advisor generally. We we tried to get a financial advisor when we were first married. We reached out to one, and there
A
was
very well known.
a well-known one,
Yeah.
and the response we got from his firm was,
You don't make enough money.
"You don't have enough in assets for it to be worth our while."
And so that kind of turned us
They
That
mailed us a
wasn't
book.
that was
Yeah.
no.
It was very nice. They mailed us a book and said, "Take care and good luck.
When you're rich.
Yeah, come back when you're rich."
did they
And
really? Oh my
yeah,
god.
I mean,
not in so
those
many words, but yeah.
essentially that was the message.
But I think it was one of those things where the real value you get with a financial advisor is it's kind of like having a doctor or having a lawyer. It's not about necessarily you could do the things like I could do a lot of the stuff that you do for us on my
Yeah.
own. Right. I can find an investment and I could buy an investment and I could manage all of that. But really what I'm paying for is someone to help shoulder that burden and
It has the expertise.
who understands
Hmm,
what I don't.
hmm,
Because I can go and make decisions and that's the thing, right? It's easy, right? Especially today. You go to Fidelity, you go to Vanguard, you go to T. Rowe Pro, right? You go to whoever it is that you need to go to. Charles Schwab, it's
No.
Charles Schwab. You open an account and you're like, here, I want to give me 30 shares of Tesla, 10 shares of Nvidia, and maybe some Amazon. And we'll call it a day. And you can do that easily. Anybody can do that. But I think it's the understanding what is going on and how can a person understand their real risk appetite? How can they plan not for today? Again, it comes back to we're not planning for today, we're planning for tomorrow.
hmm,
Or we're planning for both.
Well, we're planning for tomorrow. We're living today, planning for
Okay,
tomorrow.
yeah.
hmm.
And how can I plan effectively? And I think a lot of times I can go to my bathroom and I can grab a couple Tylenol if I'm not feeling well and call it a day. But there comes a point where there's a reason we go to a doctor.
Mm,
There's a reason why,
mm.
you can go and represent yourself in court. No one's going to stop you from doing that.
It's never a good idea though.
It's never a good idea. It's never a good idea to be your own doctor.
Especially when you're
So,
married to an attorney. Heavens no, it's a terrible idea.
right. But that's the point, right? It's you don't want to be your own lawyer. You don't want to be your own doctor. And I look at and as important as your health and as important as your freedom are, your money is almost as important, right? In the same way, that's what's going to get you through life. And
For sure.
we
Right.
don't live in a barter economy.
That's so
And
cool. So cool.
I can't pay if I've got my mortgage, I can't pay the bank in chickens and chocolate chip cookies. They want cash. And so having a financial advisor is really having a handle on your finances is a key to being able to do so many other things. And that's really the big strength in finding an advisor that you trust. And again, whether it's you, whether it's somebody else, it's find somebody you can talk to, you can trust, and that listens to you and understands what you want and can help you get there in the way that meets your values and your needs
So
and doesn't just drag you there.
that's so cool. No, you guys have taught me so much. I mean, I've learned a ton about like what's in the head of people who I've worked with so long. And it's really fun. Not only is this cool for like teaching other people, but for me as your advisor, like I should do this more often.
And you get a nice
Seriously.
ego boost.
What's that?
If you're ever feeling down about yourself, you can rewatch the videos.
Well, I do that. Yeah, I'm like, oh, the terrible advisor. Hold on, let me pull this up from. Remember what Neil said? He said even though there's a lot of probably better advisors, I'm okay.
Well, I mean, like, look, so do you think about it, right? And everything that we've sort of talked about today, I'm thinking about all the questions. Fundamentally, those are the things that we talked about the first couple of times that we met.
Yeah.
And it's right, getting a sense of what's important to us and how can we be supported through volatility, and how can we build trust in having an advisor, right? Why should we have an advisor? I think everything that we've talked about and I think that's the real value that you provide is it's not something that this isn't, and like you said, you're collecting this to help explain things to people, and that's great. But we've already gone through this before, and not for anything for you to gain anything, but for you to help us. And that's huge.
Yeah.
You're doing this to provide better service.
I also think like one of the things that helps so people that are nervous before we even officially signed up with to use you as our financial advisor, you took us through like a questionnaire and asked us about our finances, like what our goals and you did like an assessment for us before we even signed anything. And in that assessment, you then were able to show us what the value of your service was. Like this is what we could do for you. This is how we will manage your money based on like given all the information that you've given us. This is what value I can add here. And I think seeing that, doing that assessment in the very beginning, like if you can just get someone to just talk to you and where you can show what your value is and show them like based on what their current circumstances are. When you show that value, I think it's a lot easier to like it was a lot easier for us to be like, okay, well, I'm willing to pay you a percentage of our assets because you've shown us how you're going to help us grow those
Oh,
assets
that's
and
cool.
in a comprehensive and understandable way.
That's cool.
So I think the fact that you did that helped alleviate like my nervousness
Mhm.
with hiring a financial advisor.
That's
Was
way
that
cool.
initial assessment? Yeah.
That's way cool. Well, you guys are amazing. I sincerely appreciate this. I mean, not because you just say nice things, and I know we could probably do a whole nother hour, and you could say a lot of things about me that maybe I didn't want to hear. But I appreciate that you have said a lot of, and honestly, like taught me a lot of things. I'm intrigued by the behavior of money. Like of all the things I do, that's the piece that I love the most, and all the technical things, but how it changes people's lives, I just am intrigued by it because it is such a big piece, and you've taught me a lot, and you've shown that at least for the two of you, we're doing some good in that area, and that's super fun. So thank you, thank you, thank you,
Yep.
and maybe see you soon, Lori, and if
Yep. Hopefully.
enjoy and good luck to you with your girl.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right,
Hey,
All
see
right.
you
We'll see you
take
guys.
care.
later.
See you.
Okay,
Bye.
take
Bye.
care.